Hello, everyone. I hope you're all having a great day. I certainly am, but I'm trying to get a little bit used to the noise around us because I'm not quite used to this kind of a hall. So can you just quickly confirm if I am audible and you can hear me well and understand? Perfect. Thank you so much. Now I understand it is a little bit of a post-lunch session, not my favorite to present or to sit at. So I hope that I'm able to keep things interesting for us. And if at any point I'm not, just feel free to point it out and say, you're boring. It's fine. All right. So my name is Lakshmi. Can be a little bit hard to pronounce. So you can call me Lucky. That's fine, too. I work with Manage Engine. And we are a company that has been in the market for a little over 20 years. And we have a huge customer base here in Europe and specifically here in Belgium as well, through our local partner, who is Certalink, and they have a booth that is right behind us. Ours is the obnoxiously yellow one, as we like to call it. Has anyone here heard of Manage Engine before? Just to do a quick show of hands. Perfect, perfect. Wonderful, thank you. Thank you. You were at our booth earlier, were you not? I remember. All right. So we have been in the market for a little over 20 years. We have almost 5,000 employees working to create and support about 120 different products. And we have a wide range of them, which I will talk about in some time. And we have 280,000 customers all around the world across 190 different countries. So that's just a little bit on us for those of you who aren't aware of us. And we are trusted by quite a few of the biggest brands in the world, including IBM, HSBC, Samsung, and so many more as well. When it comes to where our offices and our data centers are located, I do want to make sure that this is perfectly clear that your data will stay in the continent that you are in. And we are working to provide that same support across all of your countries as well. So this is something that we are working on. And with all of these people and resources at our disposal, what we do is create solutions for IT management and security. That includes solutions for service desk management, identity and access management, security information and event management, data security and DLP, which is what I'll be talking about today, and so many more as well. And these solutions, they seem like a lot. But the thing is, these have been added to our portfolio one after the other in a very secure manner. And so from 2022 to now, we have been adding them one at a time to our portfolio. And what I want to stress on here is that each of these solutions were built entirely in-house. We do our own R&D. We do not acquire other companies. We do not take on that headache. We make sure that everything we build is as secure as possible, right from the point of inception until the time it starts being used by you and after that as well. Now, I've been talking about myself for the past 4 minutes. So let's get to know each other, right? Can we do a quick show of hands when I talk about which industry you're a part of, all right? So anyone here from finance or banking? All right, all right. Anyone from education? Okay, healthcare. Okay, IT. All right, am I missing anything? What about you? Sorry? Retail. Okay, wonderful. Anyone else? Sorry? Services? I'm just gonna come. Your students. Okay, perfect. All right. Now, so we've all seen a quick show of hands of who is in what industry, right? I'm going to ask you another question, and I want to make sure you all look around at each other for this one. How many of you store data? It sounds like a very stupid question, but I really want to drive this home, right? No matter which industry we are a part of, no matter which country, no matter which region or which continent we are a part of, there is one thing that holds us all together, and that is that every single company is, at the end of the day, a data company. You could be in footwear and apparel like Nike, and you'd be storing biometric information. You could be in retail, and you would store employees and customers' personal information. You could be in finance, and you would definitely be storing credit card and payment information and whatnot. Every single company is a data company. And we collect data for a bunch of different reasons. We might collect it for better analytics and better service, better understanding of our customers' needs, better understanding of our students and our healthcare institutions as well. And that means that because we collect this sensitive information, the responsibility also falls on us to protect that data. Everyone agree with me so far? Absolutely. So, of course, you might be considering a bunch of different solutions to implement in your networks, right? So I'm going to ask you a few questions about that. How many of you want to implement data loss prevention? I love your expressions, ma'am. So that's all of you. Great, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want to see. Here's the second question. Which data do you want to implement DLP for? All of it? Really? What about the absolutely impertinent data that you might store, like completely irrelevant that you've had for a very long time? Depends on the definition. All right, can I take a guess and say that you might want to secure your most sensitive information, right? OK, so let's go with that. Sensitive, business-critical information, like the kind that usually gets breached. Now, how will you know if your data is sensitive or not? Any answers for this one? You can take your data and read. You can check your data. Exactly. You can read through it and try to find out if it is sensitive. How much data do you store? Can you imagine trying to check every single file that you store? Trying to make sure that not all of them contain sensitive information, right? Very, very difficult to do. Here comes the next question. If you are still going to go through every single one of your files, how can you be absolutely sure that you know for sure what you store? Are you completely aware of what sensitive information you have, how sensitive it is, where it is stored, and when you collected it also? Yeah, that's right. So what I'm going to talk about today is going to help you go through each one of these steps, but in the reverse order. And I'm going to tell you why it has to be the other way around. There is absolutely no event, no way in the world that you will be able to directly jump to DLP. You have to do a lot of groundwork before that to make sure that your DLP program is as well established, is as well performative as possible as well, right? Now, the problem with most companies these days, when I talk to them, is that nobody understands that this has to go in the reverse order. A lot of them no longer know where their sensitive information is. And what we found during one of our studies was only 53% of companies know where their sensitive information is stored. 1 in every 2. That puts a lot of things into perspective, because the biggest issue with this is that if you don't know where your sensitive information is stored, you will absolutely not be able to secure it. And if you're not able to secure your sensitive information, and if you do not have visibility into it, it means that you have a poor data governance program. And if you have poor data governance, you're going to leave yourself vulnerable to data breaches. So let's walk over onto the dark side and talk a little bit about what happens if you do not have visibility into your sensitive information. I'm going to drive this point home as hard as possible with a few use cases and a few real-world cases that have happened, right? The first one was a case of classic data mismanagement. This happened with Morgan Stanley, where they misplaced the data of 15 million of their clients and had to pay a $60 million settlement. The second is non-compliance. Now, of course, depending on our industry, depending on our vertical, depending on the type of information we store, we might have to comply with the GDPR, the PCI DSS. Over in the US, they have the HIPAA and the CCPA. We have the NIST2 as well. And if you're not entirely keeping track of how your sensitive data is used and managed, then you run the risk of non-compliance, like this Chinese ride-hailing giant, which was fined a $1.2 billion penalty for failing to comply with their compliance regulations. The third thing that happens is improper storage location. This happened in the US. I'm going to have another one that happened in the US as well. And what happened here is they had a misconfiguration in one of their databases that left the voter information of 191 million US citizens exposed to the world. And the last one, carrying on from the previous one, is overexposure. And in this case, 1.8 million Texas residents who had filed insurance claims with a particular company found their information exposed. And it was left exposed for 3 years. And it was only found on accident when a third-party auditor managed to find it. Think about that for a second. Imagine if you leave your sensitive information exposed for 3 whole years. Where do you think the fines are going to be? Where do you think your customers' trust is going to be, right? So this really puts into perspective how difficult it is to manage and secure our data. And that brings us to the first data security weakness, which is a lack of visibility into your sensitive data storage. Let's think about it for a second. We need to shoulder responsibility for the data that we collect. We need to accept we are taking on a huge responsibility by collecting information, by storing it, and we need to make sure that we are not storing it beyond its applicable time, that we are also aware of what we store. This is going to be the first solution that we need to look for, which is knowing a way to find out what all sensitive information you store. And once you find it, you have to assess it as well. Because the second weakness is not understanding it. Now, this sounds like a little bit out there, right? What is there to understand about data? It's not a partner. However, if you do not know how it is being used, who can access it, and what level of access they have to this data as well, you will leave yourself vulnerable to data breaches. So when I talk about understanding your data, there are 4 questions that you need to be able to answer. The first, do you know where it is stored? The second, do you know how sensitive that particular content is? The third, do you know which permissions are assigned to it? Who can access it, of course, but also what level of access do they have to it? One thing that I find across our systems is companies often tend to leave it at a full control for default created files. Now, the issue with that is that full control allows the user to provide access to someone else as well. The reality is most people only require modify access and not full control access. So things like these are pitfalls that you can potentially be losing out on. So you need to find a way to assess the permissions that are associated with your sensitive files. And once you do that and you know who has access to it, you need to know how those people are using and modifying those files as well. You need to know if they're sending it to someone outside the company. You need to know if they are deleting it. You need to know if they're accidentally dragging and dropping it somewhere and coming up to you and telling you, I have no idea where that file went. Happens a lot, right? So all of these questions are things that you need to be able to answer to completely understand your sensitive information. Now, once you do that, you have an idea of what information you store as security administrators, as people in the IT department. How do you promote that same information to your employees? How do you tell them what can and cannot be done with this sensitive information, right? So this is where this concept of data classification comes in. It helps you tell everyone in your environment what they can and cannot do with your sensitive information. This is what will help you treat your data right? And the way you can do this is by classifying your sensitive files as a high, medium, or low sensitivity, depending on the type of information it contains. For example, If you have a file that contains personally identifiable information, if it contains information that's governed by the GDPR or the NIS2, then you need to classify it as high sensitivity. If you have a file that's publicly available information, you can classify it as low sensitivity as well. The reason why we keep this such a simple level is because it needs to be applied across regions, across languages, across countries, across companies, across divisions as well. And keeping it simple means that you let your employees know that if a file is marked as highly sensitive, then you need to be well aware of how you're treating it, where you're sending it to, and what you cannot do with that information as well. For example, if someone tries to attach a file that is classified as sensitive, and they attempt to email it to someone outside the network, then they need to be aware that this is something that cannot be done. You can show them a prompt that says this is a highly critical action that you're trying to attempt, and you can entirely block that file from being sent out if it is classified as sensitive. And the way you can do that is by having an idea and monitoring how your data is used. And you can only do this if you plug the fourth data security weakness, which is that you need to have sufficient clarity into how your data is used, classified, transferred, and sent out of your organization as well. And the way you do this is by using a file auditing capability. Now, when you think of data security and DLP, this is what is going to be the most critical in terms of helping you identify instances of data leaks as well. So the way we do it is by tracking who made what change to which file, when they changed it, and where they made that change from as well. And when you do that, you will be able to identify instances of your users trying to delete critical files, trying to access critical files outside of business hours, trying to email it to someone outside your network, or trying to mass delete or mass modify your files. Some of these are indicators of insider attacks, and some of these are indicators of ransomware attacks as well. And the way you can identify it is by using file auditing. And after the fact, also, you can go back in and use file auditing information to expedite forensic analysis as well. And that brings us, finally, to actual DLP. And one issue that most companies face here is that they fall for the myth of out-of-the-box DLP. A lot of DLP vendors out there, they tell you that you can just use it out of the box. In reality, they're absolutely wrong. The reason why I say that is every industry is unique. Every company is unique. Every company's use cases are unique as well. That means that you need to be able to customize the DLP policies that come out of your DLP tool to work for you instead of against you as well. You need to allow people to make the changes they need to make while also stopping the ones that can put you at risk of data breaches and data leaks. And the way we help you do it at Manage Engine is put together a solution that can put your data first and prevent data exfiltration. Now, if you look at the diagram that's on the right side of the screen right now, everyone wants to achieve what's at the center, which is DLP. And the way to do that is by discovering your sensitive information and auditing the movement of data which is sensitive. And it's by doing both of these together that you can monitor access to your sensitive files. And it is only by auditing your data and also by detecting data leaks that you can enable rapid threat detection and response. And it's only by combining data discovery and data leak detection that you can enforce content-aware security. And it is only if you have every single one of these 6 capabilities that you will finally be able to achieve what the ultimate goal is, which is data leak prevention. Now, when we talk about NIS2 compliance, one of the things that is mentioned is implementing appropriate security measures to your data. And the way to do that is by having all of these capabilities to help you secure your data at rest, data in use, and also your data in motion across wherever it is stored. Now, the way we help you do this at Manage Engine is we have a solution called Data Security Plus. We have a few brochures right at the end over there that you can pick up as you leave as well. And what Data Security Plus does is it helps you locate the data that is most critical to you. We do this with a combination of keyword expressions, of regular expressions, and also with keyword matches. We help you classify this information as sensitive, critical, public, or internal. And we help you analyze the meta details of these files as well. So you can use that to report on who can access a file, on what level of access they have to it, where it is stored, whether there is a duplicate copy of this file as well. And with this information, you can use it to monitor your most critical files and implement your DLP policies to your most sensitive files first and your least sensitive files last. Because at the end of the day, even though we all want to, we cannot protect every single file. We want to, but we absolutely cannot. So we need to prioritize which files we secure first and move on to the files that require the least of our attention. Now, this looks great, right? It's a linear graph. But the reality, again, is data security is a continuous process. You cannot do this once and call it quits. It's not a one-time and done process. You need to keep doing it over and over again because the reality is it is cyclic. So what we can help you here is we can provide a solution that can scan your data source for new and modified files. So as and when your data keeps evolving, we keep your information up to date as well. You make sure you always know if someone has added an additional PII to a particular file. And so you can always be aware of how it is being used, where it is stored, and also whether someone is trying to leak it outside as well. So with that, we have come to the last slide. And I also want to make it absolutely clear here that we are available at booth C010, which is the obnoxiously yellow booth. And I'd love to talk to you a little bit more about this in person. So, and in the meantime, if you have any questions for me, I'd love to take them now.